Welcome to the Spiritually Lit meeting. Each week, we're honored to host powerful speakers from around the world, sharing their stories, experiences, and hope with us. All of our speakers are recorded and shared through our Spiritually Lit YouTube channel so the message can reach those who need it. If you're listening to this recording and you're struggling, seeking help, or simply have a question, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact us anytime at spirituallit24@gmail.com and we promise to get back to you.
And tonight we've got Howard E. sharing his experience on the topic The Vital Sixth Sense for the next 45 minutes. After that, the meeting will be open for sharing back. And with that, I'll hand it over to you.
My name is Howard Eber, I am an addict. I always like to start with the set aside prayer. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the big book, and the 12 steps. Everything I think I know about the program, the fellowship, all spiritual terms, and especially about you, God, so I may have an open mind and a new experience. Please help me see the truth. Amen. When Joey asked me to do this, he asked me to come up with a topic, and I go back to my what the big book tells me to do, which is to tell you of my journey to my creator, how I established a relationship with my creator. And then yesterday, I noticed that the flyer said something else. So I go in that direction. We're going to talk about that sixth sense, that vital sixth sense. And I believe that's probably what God wants me to do at this point. Um, I I like to think of myself as a teacher. Um, if God gave me a skill, He gave me the ability to communicate on a level that so far for the last 17, 18 years has at least seemed to be effective. And that means that I always fall back into that I don't necessarily, if the topic is the fourth step, I'm not always talking about the fourth step. I'm also talking about the mechanics of the fourth step. Because you see, I went to a lot of step meetings over the years, and I heard people talk about why you should work the steps, or what happens if you work them, and what happens if you don't. But I really never went to a meeting where they said, how? How do you do that? And so, if we're talking about this vital sixth sense, this God consciousness, this 11th step, I think it's important to also talk about, well, how do I do that? If I'm sharing my experience, then I have to tell you how I do that. It's not just telling you what I gain from it, what I think about it. Why not experience that with me? And maybe that'll illuminate this terrain on which we're deployed a little bit easier. Because when I first came in here in 1983, I was in treatment, and we had what were called meditation classes. And what that consisted of is they had this activities room, it was a gymnasium, and they had gym mats laid out on the floor in a circle. And they told us to line up, there's a co-ed facility, so to line up male, female, male, female. And then they told us to grasp the hand of the person next to you and then lie backwards on these mattresses and contemplate God. And that was meditation. And I got to tell you, if I lay down on a mattress holding the hand of a female, I'm going to be doing a lot of contemplating, but it isn't about God. So that didn't work for me. And I tried all kinds of other types of meditation. And I even, when I was 16, I felt, this should come as no surprise to some people. It was during an LSD experience. I felt the hand of God. I really experienced that. And so after the trip, I went on a mission to try and reconnect without the use of hallucinogens. I knew I wouldn't find that power in a synagogue. My religious training I was gagging on everything and anything that we were talking about in the synagogue and Judaism. So I went to other places. I went to Catholic churches. I went to Protestant churches. I went to Episcopalian. I lived in the city, so I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the Church of Krishna Consciousness in Manhattan. You know, those the guys with the finger symbols and the gowns and the shaved heads and the schwantz on their head. And well, that didn't work for me for another reason. I believe God creates us in his own image, and I know he wouldn't wear his hair like that. So that didn't work for me at all. But what I wanted to really talk about is what does it mean to me today? Um, I thought that the 11th step said, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact. Now, that conscious contact is another way of saying my vital sixth sense, because everything I've learned in my life, I've learned through my five senses. It's come in through those senses, what I can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. But I am now expected to establish a method of communication with my creator, and I cannot use those five senses. They fall short. They do not bring me to that point of connection. So I had to find another way of doing that. And I was taught that that was through prayer, which is asking, and meditation, which was listening. And for 24 years, I had a dysfunctional relationship with God because I thought the asking part was to tell God the things I needed him to do for me in the course of the day. That's what I was taught. And so every I said, God, I turn my will and my life over to your care. And this is what I need you to do. And I have my list of things. And the end of the day, I'd sit down with my list because I kept a list. I don't think he did, because at the end of the day, when I went over my list, most of the things were unchecked. Most of the things were still undone. So I figured, all right, God, we'll try again tomorrow. But I didn't realize until I got to that section of the big book where it told me the correct order of things is God is my director. He is the father. He is the principal. My job is to stay close to him. And here's where it opened the door for me, and do his bidding. He's not here to do my bidding. I'm here to do his bidding. So how am I to know what that is? You know, I hear people in meetings say, well, just do the next right thing, which drives me crazy because I don't know what the next right thing is. You know, they tell you, you know, you see up on the wall in a lot of meetings, it says, think, think, think. Well, the last thing in the world I want to do is invite the predator into the decision-making process. The thinking is what got me into the jam. So inviting the cause of the problem into the solution of the problem was counterproductive, it seemed to me. So that didn't work. I had to find another way to do this. And it started by on page 61, book says that are we not in our best moments, meaning when my motives are right, a producer of confusion rather than harmony. So I right away realized, oh, here's a way. When I'm not sure of what God's will is for me today, how about I reduce it to that? Is it going to produce harmony or is it going to produce confusion? You know, on page 55, it says that deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamental sense of God. And whether you call it your conscience, your innate intelligence, call it a gut feeling, whatever it is, it's that thing in your stomach that tells you, at least for me, I think that's a bad idea, Howard. I wouldn't do that if I were you. That knot in my stomach, I finally identified as God. That I had to, as Mark Houston said, stop looking for God. We have to stop looking for God because to find God, you must be out of your mind because we don't find God with that organ. We find God with this organ, with another organ. Because God isn't out here to be found. God is in here to be let out. And what I have to do in the course of my inventories is to clear out the clutter, identify first the clutter, the things that have accumulated on my soul that are blocking God from getting out. And once I identify those things and I work at turning those defects into assets with God's help, I can clear the path for God to come out. But it still doesn't answer how do I communicate with that power. And I used to think in the beginning it was as simple as listening. In the morning, I would turn my will over and I would tell God, ask God for direction, for strength, courage, acceptance, and direction in all things, and guide me to help another alcoholic and an addict today, and show me the all through the day. I would have the tuner on and I would listen and I would watch. It was active listening for God's messages to me. It could come on a billboard I see while I'm driving on the highway. It could be in the course of a meeting. I hear one of you folks saying something. I could be standing in the checkout line at the grocery store, and two lanes over, these two old ladies are talking, and I hear what I'm supposed to hear, and that's it, God. That's what I needed to hear. If I keep the tuner on, I will get the answers when they're transmitted to me. And for many, many years, that's what I relied upon. But a few years back, I was listening to a tape of Mark Houston's. And Mark, if you're familiar with him, at about his ninth year of sobriety, he was a known speaker at that time on the circuit, whatever the circuit was back in the 80s and 70s. Um, he was a well-known speaker, and he checked himself into an insane asylum with 9 years sobriety because he was having suicidal thoughts. And when he checked in, he said the only book he brought with him was the big book. And he asked God when he got there, what am I not doing? What am I missing? Why am I thinking along the lines of hurting myself, of taking myself out? And one word occurred to him. That word was meditation. And when I heard that story, it hit home for me because I was going through a dark period. I thought at that moment, I thought my marriage was falling apart. My relationship with my son had never been worse. You know, when we get healthy, the book tells us we get right spiritually, then mentally, then physically. So we get right through the first three steps, and then get right through 4 through 7, and then get right in 8 and 9. But when I unwind, when I'm starting to come apart, what's the first warning sign? Well, it says it in the bedevilments. I am having difficulty with human relationships. And I was surrounded by dysfunctional human relationships. And so I went to the person who I respected most in this world in terms of meditation, and that was my wife. And I asked her to help me. And she taught me how to meditate that has carried me to this day because I was doing it all wrong. At least whatever I was doing was unproductive. So, in that sense, it was all wrong. And so, what I wanted to do today, if you'll indulge me, is I want to go back in time a little bit to the first thing that Kathy played for me, that I listen to on a daily basis, because it teaches me once again what to do when I meditate. And I'm going to put it on in a moment, and I'm going to ask that you kind of go along with me on this, that you get comfortable wherever you are. I see that some of you are in a meeting room. I would get comfortable in my chair. I would plant my feet firmly on the ground, maybe even take your shoes off. Get your hands comfortable on the armrest or maybe resting on your thigh. And as the voice tells you what to do. One of the things that it's going to tell us to do over and over and over again is to monitor, to beware, be mindful of our breathing. And when it says to inhale, do that. Inhale and feel it filling the cavities of your chest and the rest of your body. And then when it says to release, don't exhale. Release. There's a difference. When I exhale, I'm using energy. I'm pushing something out. I'm going to suggest that when the time comes to release that air, that energy, that's what we do. We release it. We let go of it. We don't force it out. And when the voice that's conducting the interview tells us to focus on our hands or our shoulders or our chest or our heart, or it tells us to focus on every cell of our body, it'll tell us to focus on all of the sounds around us, to become one with those sounds. Don't compete with them. Don't try and push them out. Incorporate them into your overall sensory gathering at that particular moment, to sink into that awareness. And if you lose track, start again. If some of the sounds around you distract you and you get lost in those random thoughts, refocus on the breathing, start again. So get comfortable. I'm going to put this on. It's going to last about 15 minutes. It ends with the word namaste, appropriately enough. And let me find it here for you. Give me a second. All right, there it is. There, I could see it. So now let me get it so you can see it. Let me share the sound. Everybody comfortable? Sit back, relax.
The following meditation is led by Tara Brach. To access more of my meditations or join my email list, please visit tarabrach.com. This guided practice is specifically geared towards relaxation, letting go, really resting with ease. Become aware of this body breathing. And begin to extend the in-breath, lengthening and deepening so that you're filling the whole chest and lungs. So breathing in, deep in-breath, and a slow out-breath, slowly releasing, letting go, letting go. And again, a deep, full in-breath, expanding the chest, filling the lungs. And a slow out-breath, evenly, smoothly releasing, so you can feel the sensations of the breath as you exhale. Long, deep, full in-breath. You might begin counting with the in-breath to 6 counts. And matching the out-breath, 6 counts out. And if that feels like too long, it's quite fine to do 4 counts, but let the in-breath and out-breath be matched. Continuing in this way, Sense with the in-breath an opening to receive, a yielding to the breath. And with the out-breath, a releasing, a letting go, a relaxing outward. Continuing with this long, deep in-breath, slow out-breath. You might find that as you're breathing, you can bring a slight smile to the mouth and soften the eyes. And if the mind wanders, you notice you've lost track of the breathing, just gently come back again, begin again. You might sense with the in-breath how much it's possible to soften and open and receive. And with the out-breath, how much it's possible to release, as if you're following the breath out into the space around you. Relaxing outward, letting go. Continuing with this full in-breath and full out-breath. And sensing that you can bring the breath and the attention to the small muscles in the face, softening, relaxing. Letting the tongue fill the lower palate, relaxing at the root of the tongue. Continuing with the breathing and sensing the possibility of relaxing more at the shoulders. With the in-breath, opening, receiving. Feeling the space inside the shoulders, and with the out-breath, letting go, letting go. Bringing the breath and the attention to the hands, letting the hands be soft. Relaxing and letting go. Feeling the breath and the awareness at the heart, so that as you breathe in, you open to receive, feeling the aliveness that's there, and with the out breath, a letting go, releasing, relaxing. Feeling the breath deep in the torso, letting it fill the belly with the in-breath. And with the out-breath, a letting go, letting go, letting go. Widening to sense the whole body breathing. So with the in-breath, you're filling every cell of the body, opening, receiving. And with the out-breath, releasing, letting go. And now letting go of any controlling of the breath, allowing the breath to resume in its natural rhythm. A relaxed attentiveness. Aware of the gentle movement of the breath, the sensations in the body. The sounds around you. Relaxing back and just resting in this wakeful openness. Letting life be just as it is. Moment to moment to moment. If the mind gets lost in distracting thoughts, let your practice simply be to relax. Relax, open the attention, aware of the sounds that are here, and the background sound of silence. Gently scan the body, perhaps relaxing the shoulders a bit. Softening your hands. Relaxing your heart. Relax back. Resting in the awareness that's right here. Letting life be just as it is. You might ask yourself if it's possible to relax and let go just a little bit more. Gently scanning to notice the habitual places of contraction, of tightness. And with kindness and gentleness, just softening a bit. Namaste.
Come back. I hope that helped. It helped me understand that meditation was not about relief. Meditation brought me freedom, and that's what we seek, is freedom. I can get relief an hour at a time. I can go to a meeting and be fine for an hour. But what happens when I open that door and the world comes at me? I need to be focused. I need to be in a position, place mentally where I can handle that. And that's what meditation does for me. Let me show you we have a few minutes more, another visual aid. I love visual aids. I tend to be a visual person. I've noticed in our book that there are these signposts, spiritual signposts as I go along. It begins with the second step in the instructions I'm being given to lay aside prejudice and to seek, to search diligently. So it's like I'm in a dark room. Nobody's in there with me, but I'm looking around. By the third step, it says I became conscious of his presence, which means I'm in that dark room, but I no longer feel alone. I know there's no furniture, there's no lights, there's no windows, there's nobody in there but me. Yet I sense another entity in that room with me, and I become conscious of that presence in my third step. And by the fifth step, I begin to feel the nearness of that creator. I'm not only in that room with that other entity, I'm sensing that that entity is close by. And then by the time I get to the 10th step, I begin to sense the flow of that spirit into me. I'm starting to connect with that spirit. And by the time I get to step 11, I have made conscious contact with God and I have entered the world of the spirit. I am walking in what Bill calls the fourth dimension of existence. And the fourth dimension, I believe, is the peaceful, is the harmonious blend of the other three. See, we have three basic dimensions: spiritual, mental, and physical. And if I get right meant spiritually in 1, 2, and 3, which for me is as simple as knowing that I'm not number one. I came here thinking I'm number one. I'm not. I'm in the secondary position. And as a result of what it says on page 61, I am not the director. There is another director. There is another principal. There is a father, and I'm not it. I am in the secondary position. And once I absorb that, I've gotten right with God. And in 4, 5, 6, and 7, I get right with myself. I get in harmony mentally. And in 8 and 9, I get right. I get in harmony with you folks. So as a result of the first 9 steps, I am perhaps for the first time in my life healthy, in harmony, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And I want to stay on that path. So God and Bill give me these directions for continued spiritual growth, for relapse prevention in steps 10, 11, and 12. You see, when people relapse today, I think we ask them the wrong questions. We ask, did you stop going to meetings? Did you stop calling your sponsor? I got another idea about what to ask them. It's three simple questions. How much time did you spend each day in prayer and meditation? Oh, not much, huh? Okay. How much time did you spend deepening and enriching your spiritual life through intensive work with others one on one? Oh, not too much, huh? How much time did you spend each day in inventory? Not too much, huh? Well, you are bound to relapse. If we don't spend each day in prayer and meditation and intensively working with others one on one and doing our inventory, going across those columns every day, we are bound to relapse. We are being given a way to maintain that freedom. I don't want relief anymore. You know, as addicts, we want, not only do we want instant gratification, I don't know if you ever thought about it, but we also want constant gratification. We want it all the time. And the 10th, 11th, and 12th step guides me to do that. That vital sixth sense, knowing what God's will is for me. And if I start by just asking, is it going to produce harmony or confusion? I can extend that to the basic principles of the Oxford Group: purity, honesty, unselfishness, and love. So, is what I'm about to do going to create purity, honesty, unselfishness, love, and harmony? And then I can extend it yet again to the seven spiritual principles, the morals I try and live by: tolerance, compassion, patience, humility, forgiveness, love, and goodwill. And now, when I ask myself, is what I'm considering doing consistent with all of those things, or does it violate them? Now, I can decide to go along with it if it violates some of those things. But as Charlie Parmley taught me, how far can I push that envelope? How many compromises can I make on a daily basis before I start to compromise my morals wholesale? If I do it one at a time, it becomes very easy to compromise groups of them. So I try and keep that to a minimum. So when I ask myself, what's God's will for me today? Is it going to create harmony? Is it going to create purity, honesty, unselfishness, and love? Is it consistent with tolerance, compassion, patience, humility, forgiveness, and goodwill? That's what God's will is for me today. That's what I believe He wants me to do today. And I hear those things in the silence of that meditation, because meditating is the only time I get to see my thoughts. See, I can't eliminate those thoughts. That's not possible. All I could do is replace those thoughts. And if I replace them with these feelings of peace and focalness, being focused, I could remain in that sixth sense all day long. So thank you for having me. I'll put up the link for that particular guidance in the chat, and peace.